Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Telium webinar, which is a masterclass overview on the ever-evolving world of customer trust and data privacy. My name is Matt Parisi. I am the Director of Product Marketing here at Telium, and I'll be giving you the overview of our 3 webinar series that's coming on and kind of give you the general strokes of what we'll be covering in the full webinar series. So, as I mentioned, this is part of a full series. The series is about how you can use customer data to build trust with your customers and ultimately produce great results for your company. We have 3 webinars as part of the series. The first one will be on changes in the data privacy landscape and how these are affecting your brand. We'll talk about how to establish customer trust with privacy-focused campaigns. And lastly, we'll talk about how to achieve privacy at scale at an organizational level. Today, we'll be going over kind of an overview of the full series. What is the strategy that we're advocating for here? And kind of how can you take that strategy to your own organizations? The first webinar is February 9th. There's a link in the attachments section that you can use to go and sign up for that one. But definitely, there's 2 after that as well. So don't forget about those ones as well. So getting into the overview of what the webinar series will be covering, I'll give you a quick outline of kind of how I'll go over the overview here. First, I'll kind of cover what we're talking about when we say the data privacy landscape. I'll give a quick overview on what we view as the 3 pillars of trust and how any organization should go about building trust with their data from your customer relationships all the way to how you integrate with your technologies to the ecosystem. We'll talk about privacy by design and at scale and how you can take privacy by design practices into your organization. And lastly, we'll talk about the role of the CDP in consent, trust, and privacy. Starting off with the data privacy landscape, though, over the last few years, over the last 5 to 7 years, which we're covering on this timeline that you see here, basically what you've seen is an increasingly rapid drumbeat of ways in which the signal from customer data has been blocked basically by either consumer actions or laws or all of these various things that basically manage the way that companies are able to manage and use customer data. What you see is, we have a timeline here that goes back to 2009. I will say these forces have been evolving since even before 2009. But as you look at recent years, and especially 2022, 2021, 2020, I think what's interesting to look at on this timeline is how there are more and more pieces of news that you have to plan around as far as how you're using data to power the customer experience. Back in 2016 and 2017, it was kind of like a little drip of changes and evolutions that you needed to plan around. Now it's like every year there's 5 or 6 pretty big changes. And I'm not going to go over each individual change. I think if you're focused too much on each individual change, you kind of lose focus on the overall trend that's happening in the market. And what I think is valuable to look at is basically what are the general flavors or the categories of changes that are coming. First off, I think you have technological changes. So you have Apple introducing things like ITP and ATT, which basically block customer data going to companies. So these are things you need to plan around how your technology integrates together based on what data you might have access to. Secondly, you have regulations. And a lot of the technology changes are in relation to regulations, but a lot of the technology changes are in anticipation of regulations. So regulations are definitely something you need to keep your eye on. Things like GDPR, which has basically become the gold standard for customer privacy. CCPA, which is kind of the California version, slightly different. Like I said, though, ultimately important to consider the overall trend. And while it's important to address each individual regulation, see kind of why these regulations are coming out. And the last force at work is customer behavior. So customers are very skeptical of company use of customer data. So that's something that companies need to plan around, because if a customer doesn't trust you, they have a lot of tools at their disposal to block their data from getting to you. So it's critical to establish that customer trust up front. So shifting into kind of a bird's eye view on each of the 3 webinars that we'll have as part of the Masterclass series. The first one is all about the three pillars of building trust. And how do you do that in an organization? We think that there's three main areas where you need to really think about how trust relates to your data. First is your customer relationships. You have to abide by the customer's preferences, or else trust is going to go down. If you're not able to stop emailing someone when someone asks to be and stop emailed, that is going to degrade customer trust, which is going to really impact your ability to market to that person. Secondly, organizationally, you need to have trust in your data. You need to trust that the data is up to date, it's high quality, it accurately reflects the customer that you're trying to market to. And then lastly, you need to have trust with the ecosystem. You need to use data in a way where there are trusted handshakes between technology across the omni-channel landscape, which is of course much easier said than done. And when we look into each one of these pillars, we can see why it's such a big deal. So trust with customers. First off, consent rates are way down. Given that you're only going to be able to supply personalized experiences with consent in the future, especially once Chrome deprecates cookies in 2024, it's really important to have that trust with your customers. So you need to think about, what am I giving in exchange for this trust? That has to be an equal trade, but the customer also can't have any suspicions about what you're doing, or any worries about what you're going to do with that data if you're going to get breached or something like that. Secondly is trust in organizational data. There are times in everybody's lives when you're trying to construct a campaign, and you look at the data that's available and you say, I don't really trust that, and that might stop you from running that campaign. But ultimately, that means that the customer experience is worse than it otherwise would be. So most organizations have a significant data quality problem, and this is definitely something to have your focus as you use data more and more for the purposes of building customer trust and loyalty. And then lastly is trust with the ecosystem. I'm sure everybody's heard about third-party cookies going away and dying. Sometimes you hear this referred to as the cookie apocalypse. So we're already in a state where 50 to 60% of signal fidelity, the signal that we use to provide experiences, has gone away in the market, which means that you have to establish new ways of basically integrating with other technologies and other venues where you'll be engaging your customers. So it really is a multifaceted strategy, and you got to think about it from multiple lenses. But this is a stat from our State of CDP report. Privacy is the number one marketing priority for most organizations out there at the current point in time. We ran this survey, and this goes beyond people who own a CDP. This is basically anybody who's managing data in any way, with a CDP or not, responded to this and showed that customer data privacy is basically the number one objective for businesses out there. And when you look at just CDP owners, it's a big focus as well. And what you can see here is that companies that have a CDP are much more confident in their ability, or their preparedness to adapt to new privacy regulations. So we'll, in our webinar series, we'll talk about all of the different ways that a CDP can be used to address these privacy regulations, that will give you an insight into why a lot of companies are adopting CDPs to better address these changing regulations. And what are these regulations that you're seeing out there? What are these changes in behavior? A lot of it comes down to the signal loss. And like I said, the signal loss could be due to regulations, it could be due to technology changes, and it could be due to customers taking action, like doing ad blocking or clearing their cookies. All of these factors that make the signal less available mean that consent is the front door to customer experience. If you don't get permission to market to somebody in the ways that you're going to need to market to them through their customer journey, their customer experience becomes much worse, which leaves money on the table for you as a business, because you'll have less opportunities basically to tailor an experience and bring that person back to have a successful outcome with your business. because of the fact that kind of this one size fits all solution, third party cookies, has gone away, that means there's this need for interoperability in the market as well. And that's what we talk about when we talk about building trust with the ecosystem, is there's going to be a variety of different ways that technology is going to integrate. It's not even clear which technologies are going to win in that new marketplace come 2024. And if you're not prepared with kind of a foundation that you can, bring around the market and have a little bit of portability for agility purposes, you might find yourself with challenges that you could avoid if you start kind of testing things these days. And one of those pieces of technology that's becoming more important are identity resolution. So Telium as a CDP does some identity resolution, but there are also solutions out there that you can use to bring in third-party data that might fill some of the insight gaps that you have with your first-party data. Ultimately giving you the agility in the market. Again, CDPs kind of give you that confidence to be prepared for these changes in the market moving forward. But it's not all about technology. So our third masterclass is really about how you have to organize your business to manage customer data, because a lot of organizations don't have robust processes for working across departments when it comes to IT, customer support, or customer, call centers, or that kind of thing, to marketing, to, sales and other departments that ultimately could get benefit out of customer data. When you unify customer data, it becomes really useful for a lot of different use cases. So that's why thinking about how your organization needs to be organized in order to take advantage of customer data is so important. We see one of the major reasons why companies are challenged with managing customer data really is just the way that they're organized as a business. So that is an overview of what our customer trust masterclass will be about. Like I said, the first one is coming up on February 9th. Please go ahead and sign up. There's a link there where you can sign up. But there are also, there's a masterclass on how to build data privacy practices with your customers. And then there's another one on how to organize your organization to build trust around data as well. We also have a white paper called In Data We Trust, all about how you can build trust with your customers. It's basically a written form of this masterclass series. So if you have a preference, you can go between them, or you could read one and then come to the webinars and kind of reinforce what you learned. But hope to see you at the masterclass. Appreciate you taking the time to watch the overview. If you do have any questions, feel free to type them in, and we will follow up on them, but won't be going through a Q&A today. But attend the masterclass webinars, and we'll talk to you there. So hope you have a good day, and we'll see you at the masterclass. Bye-bye.